Today I had the chance to do something I have long wanted to do. That is, debate the rising TikTok star, Dean Withers. I was able to join one of his lives, and after about 10 minutes, he invited me up, and we were able to have a debate. Now, I wanted to debate him about the repealing of birthright citizenship, something that the Trump administration has moved by executive order to do, and something which, although unlikely, I believe would absolutely benefit the United States of America. What you'll see in the next 10 or so minutes is the debate that Dean and I had, which eventually devolves into him totally just avoiding my points, not trying to get back to the debate that we were having. Instead, he prefers to go to my TikTok account, find a video that he labeled racist, call me a racist, and kick me from the live. Pay very close attention to what my original argument is, because there's a point in this video where Dean is going to claim that I made an argument that I never made. And don't worry, stay until the end and you actually see the TikTok video that got Dean to kick me off. And you guys can decide whether it was really racist or whether Dean was maybe acting like a bit of a baby. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Schwemmer. I am a political commentator and a campus speaker. And I actually was on political TikTok as well about 5 years ago on a little account that had, I think, about 1 million followers called the Republican Hype House. You'll see me at the beginning of this clip ask if Dean knows about it. He does not, which, makes me feel really old, but either way, enjoy the debate that we're about to have, and let me know in the comments, what do you think? What could I have done better? Did Dean win? Unlikely, but let me know. Without further ado, here is the debate that I had this morning with Dean Withers on TikTok Live.
Welcome in, Kai Clips. Do you support
What's
Trump?
up, Dean? Good to see you, man. I don't know if any of your viewers are going to remember me. Way back in my day, before you were on TikTok, there was a thing called the Republican Hype House. You ever hear of that?
I have not heard of the Republican Hype House.
Okay, yeah, this is like way back. I think you would have been, what would it, like 15, I think. It's crazy. Time has flown. But anyway, I was a guy on there.
What is the Republican
and it's
Hype
very,
House?
Yeah, this was a big thing back during the 2020 election cycle. There was a Republican and a Democrat Hype House. I don't know if any of your viewers remember this. This was a really fun era in political TikTok. By the way, just so you don't kick me off, we are going to debate. I do disagree with you. I'm happy to discuss, but this is just a cool part of the lore that I wanted to explore, because I see you, I see some of the other new heads here on TikTok, on the political TikTok stuff, and it motivates me. So I'm coming back. I wanted to do a rerun.
All right, bro, this is your comeback moment. Shit on me. Shit on me.
I'm ready, man. I'm ready.
Regain your clout, regain your notoriety, beat Dean Withers.
Let's keep it topical. Although I think you and I might agree, I don't disagree very much with your critiques of, for example, the conflict in Iran and how Trump has handled that, the influence of the AIPAC lobby, stuff like that. I think you're very right to point out.
Right.
But I think that Trump has actually been pretty good, for example, on the issue of immigration. He could certainly be better. But now we're seeing in the court a recent victory with birthright citizenship. So I wanted to debate you on that. I think that Trump is good for his repealing of birthright citizenship, or his attempt to, through an executive order.
What did SCOTUS rule?
Well, the SCOTUS actually ruled something that wasn't, a total upholding of his original executive order. Rather that, these smaller courts couldn't just do this injuncture where all of a sudden they could rule for the entire country, that it couldn't go into effect. So admittedly, SCOTUS didn't actually, uphold his executive order.
Right.
But the point is,
they just said that federal court's going to issue nationwide injunctions.
Exactly, which is what I said.
Yeah, sure.
But,
I mean, I'll do like a little debate with you. But I'm not.
Why a little one?
Listen, man, I'm not like a law guy. I'm not a lawyer. I'm
not a lawyer.
My defense.
We can talk about the philosophy behind it.
My defense that his executive order is unconstitutional is because the 14th Amendment says all persons born in this country are deserving of U.S. citizenship. But if you hit that out with like some fucking trap card, it's unlikely that I'll have a response. But I think that's pretty common sense. 14th Amendment says all persons are deserving of citizenship given that they're born on U.S. soil. EO said otherwise. Seemingly, the EO is unconstitutional for that reason. And I mean, that's why federal courts across the country have agreed. And that's why the Supreme Court didn't rule that it was constitutional. What are your thoughts?
Okay. I think the more important argument is not so much what is in the Constitution. It's more so, whether or not the thing that's in the Constitution is actually true, right? Because the Constitution is being reinterpreted constantly. I believe in the Constitution. I think it's an important document. but I would be surprised if you and I have the same perspective of it. Like, for example, Dean, if we were to reinterpret the Second Amendment to have some kind of 180-degree radical departure from its original intent, we were to completely restrict gun ownership, would you be in favor of that?
Would I be in favor of restricting gun ownership? Like all
Or
gun
a
ownership?
reinterpretation of, like,
in
a
all scenarios?
reinterpretation
So,
of the Constitution?
like to like completely ban all gun ownership?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be about guns. I'll cut to the chase. The point I'm trying to make is that I think you would be in favor of a reinterpretation of the Constitution in such a way that is like a 180-degree departure from the original intent of the document. And if that's your belief, then, well, we shouldn't be arguing about whether or not the Constitution says it's legal.
Okay.
Because to you, it's not all that
So
important.
I don't support that. So, I mean, I support interpreting the Constitution insofar as what is written and what a fair interpretation would be. Now, if like there is a scenario where there's something written in the Constitution that I think should have a 365-degree departure from the words on the document or what a fair interpretation would be, then I wouldn't support just saying like, oh, let's pass a EO to say that we can do this even though the Constitution says otherwise. No, that's not the proper legal channel. The proper legal channel would be like a new amendment through Congress. So completely departing from the Constitution, saying that you disagree with it, we need to completely reinterpret it. If we want to do that, we'd have to take the proper legal channels, which would be a constitutional amendment through Congress. That's not what Donald Trump did. He just passed the EO saying otherwise.
Okay, so if there was a constitutional amendment that said like all of the prior amendments to the Constitution, like the Constitution itself, are null and void, hereby declared null and void, would you be in favor of that so long as it was done constitutionally or legally?
Oh, can that be done? Like, you probably know more about this than I.
think so,
Is that something that could literally be done?
I don't think it would be done in that way.
I don't know.
Logic.
For right now, I'm gonna remain agnostic on that claim, and the reason I'm gonna remain agnostic on that claim is like I'm not sure that they can do that. But like I mean they might be able to. I just have to do my legal research because all that I'm talking about is like what is legal, because like you're basically. But I just want to like clarify. Like,
okay.
Your position.
Can I stop you there?
Real quick, I just want to clarify. Your position is if you disagree with the Constitution, you just think it's okay to nuke it through an illegal EO.
That's actually the opposite of my point. My point is that the Constitution is constantly being reinterpreted and being redefined to the point where the Constitution eventually in the future, particularly by Democratic people, right, or Democratic politicians or judges, I think at some point in the future, the Constitution that we'll have, especially if, immigration continues the way it's been happening, it's going to be totally different than the founders intended. And I think the Constitution is good, but I don't just think it's good because it allows for its own self-destruction, right?
Wait,
something to be valuable.
The Constitution is a living, updating, document. I mean, I hear this argument a lot. Like, we need to do what the founders intended. Well, the founders intended for us to be able to have the legal ability to amend the Constitution, and a living, breathing Supreme Court, and which is always true, that holds the ability to give their interpretation of what they see fit in the Constitution. But I don't want to get like too far off base here because remember originally we're talking about Donald Trump's ban on birthright citizenship.
True.
Do you think that Donald Trump's EO there is legal?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so then when the 14th Amendment says all persons born in this country have a right to citizenship, it didn't actually mean all persons born in this country have birthright citizenship?
There's a part you're leaving out.
What's the part I'm leaving out?
And subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And that is the place where all of this constitutional debate is going to be occurring, because it's a super unspecific phrase, but it's one that's been elaborated and reinterpreted over time. For example, Native Americans who were born in the United States were not automatically U.S. citizens because they were not sufficiently deemed to be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. They had their own tribal laws. They were basically, governing themselves. And so they were not automatically from the, inception of this amendment made American citizens.
Oh, so you're right, but the debate that you're pointing out was like, I don't know, what was this? Like the 18th century when we didn't have like clear congressional legislation that considered
No, this was well into the 19th century.
Oh, this was the 19th century when we didn't have like clear congressional legislation defining like the jurisdiction of Native American tribes as having sovereignty while still existing in America. So like the debate that you're pointing out is just merely trying to determine if the land that they were born on is jurisdiction of the federal government, correct?
No. It speaks to a larger argument, which is whether or not these people truly find themselves, to be Americans, whether they consider themselves as such. My idea is that to be a citizen,
so subject to the jurisdiction of, you have to. What do you mean?
Okay, if somebody goes to a country and like disassociates with the government or lives in a community with its own laws, with its own language, separate from the rest of the country, do you think that person is equally a citizen of the rest of the nation as anybody else?
Dude, if you have an SSN, you're equally a citizen as anybody else. Yep, absolutely. What?
So here's a question. What then separates an American like you or I from any other person in the entire world?
Yeah, the fact that we have a social security number, at least
So
in the way that
8
I'm using the
digits.
term.
So it's like, what is it, 8 digits? I don't even know. I have to think about it. 9 digits?
Yeah, like
So is that-
like legally
that's-
speaking,
that is
like using
okay,
like the
hold on.
like using the legal hey, I don't think that American's going to be a univocal term. I think that we could use
Oh.
the term in different senses depending on the context of the conversation. But obviously, the conversation that we're having is going to be a legal conversation about if Donald Trump's EO is constitutional or unconstitutional. In a legal sense, absolutely. Like what defines an American is going to be possessing an SSN, an 8-digit number, absolutely.
Yeah, so what I'm interested in here is not so much like this legal thing, because frankly, that is a total, it's like when people talk about immigration and they only talk about the products of culture. When
I
people
thought the
talk
debate
about
that we were
immigration,
having was about the legality of Trump's
well,
EO.
hold on. What I'm trying to point out is that this is kind of like this very reductionist way of looking at the argument. I'm not interested in this idea of like, and frankly, I would say if your idea, and you could disagree, I'm going to give you space here to like redefine being an American as something else. Give me an argument or give me a definition of what an American is that's a little bit deeper, that maybe speaks to something more philosophical or cultural than a social security number. Because you and I don't disagree. Somebody who has a social security number is an American citizen legally, obviously. But I think there's something deeper, because if it's only a social security number that makes somebody an American, every single person in the world is like 9 digits away from being an American citizen. And I don't think everybody in the world is an undocumented American.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm not really too sure on what you want to debate. Because you originally
Well,
told
what does
me,
it mean to be an
one
American?
moment, if you allow me to finish. I'm not sure on what
Okay,
you want
fair,
to debate.
fair.
Because
That's
you
fair.
originally told me that you want to debate the legality of Donald Trump's executive order as it relates to
That's
banning
not what I
birthright
said.
citizenship. It is.
No, I didn't. I
So
didn't
then
want
what
to
did you
say.
come up here to debate?
Hold on. I came up to debate whether or not repealing birthright citizenship is good. We could disagree about the legality of it, but I could still think it's good. I'm here to talk to you about the actual moral claims, about the worth of the argument.
Okay.
There's plenty of things that are illegal.
Don't I like pull up the
that I could
timestamp on my
still agree
YouTube
with.
live stream and run it back?
Sure.
Like you said that you
Sure.
think that it was legal?
Hold on. I said. Hold on. Now you're
like
shifting.
I
Hold on.
like,
You're
and then
being-
I wait. I could even like rehash like what my response to that claim was, and then how you respond to that. So you made the claim
I
that like
understand.
the EO as it related to burning birthright citizenship was legal, and then I went on to say, well, like obviously I don't know if I agree with you, because when we look at the text of the 14th Amendment, it very clearly says that all persons born in America have a right to citizenship, and then you retorted that. You didn't even say no, I don't want to debate the legality. I want to debate like the social implications or whatever. But no, you then retorted that claim by responding, well, it is the case. Well, if we look at the end of the 14th Amendment, it says subject to the jurisdiction thereof, and then you gave an example about like contentious legal debate in the 19th century as it related to like indigenous Americans born in unlike Native American tribes, and then I responded to that by saying, well, that was before we had congressional legislation that clearly defined Native American tribes as possessing their own sovereignty while still existing as a part of the greater federal government, and then you didn't really give me a clear response there, and then you kind of started to change the topic of conversation into this more like social or philosophical debate, detracting from the legality of the EO and just kind of hinging your argument on it being good. Now, I understand if you want to argue I understand if you want to argue the perspective that you think it's like probably a good thing to deny birthright citizenship to the children of undocumented immigrants outside of its legality, and we can have a conversation about that. But before we do, I definitely either need you to respond to the argument that I gave you to demonstrate that it's illegal, or to, just concede and say, Dean, you've won this debate, and we can move on to something else.
Okay. So I think I already addressed the thing you just asked me to respond to. And I hope you're listening still. I know you're looking at your phone, but I hope you're still listening. You literally, in describing the way the debate went, mentioned the fact that I had already responded to the argument about legality.
I know,
when you mentioned that,
you didn't
I've
defeat
already
my
addressed
counter
that.
response.
We did. That was the point. I said subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Subject to the jurisdiction thereof is going to be the thing
I know, but then
your
your explanation of why that's going to like equally dispute the point was because of like some examples that related to Native Americans, and then I retorted that by simply just pointing out it was before congressional legislation that clearly defined Native American tribes as existing as a part of the federal government of the United States of America, and it like obviously is a case that the children of undocumented immigrants born in this country are very like clearly defined as being born on like the sovereign jurisdiction of the federal government. So that argument wouldn't hold water. Now everybody in the chat is saying that the fifth post on your page is racist. Let's go and listen to it together.
Being racist.
What are your deal breakers?
Being racist.
Oh yeah, it's literally a video of you saying that you're racist. Why?
That's not the case. That video is so funny, dude. You can admit that's funny. Look, I thought your crash out about the anxiety pen, which was obviously a bit. I don't think that was
Dude,
real.
this is just a
It was
video
a
of you
funny
saying that you're
joke.
racist.
That is such a reductionist way of looking at the funniness of that video. What are you like gonna watch Tim Dillon? You're gonna watch like any person, Andrew Schultz, you're like gonna watch a stand-up comedy and say, that was really racist. I'm not gonna laugh at any of it.
It is literally a 3-second clip of you like metaphorically pushing the button to say that you're racist, and then the caption is it says I be like Buzz.
Yeah. I
really do think that the only people that are going to laugh watching
declaration?
that are going to be like 12-year-olds that watch Andrew Tate. Like, come on.
Well, I mean,
let's
like
be
3
real.
million people who like the video disagree with you.
Well, I mean, dude,
but
probably
anyway,
3 million 12-year-olds that watch Andrew Tate.
let's go. No, but anyway, we'll get back to the debate. So what I'm trying to point out,
Dude,
what I'm trying to point
what the
out,
fuck is, dude? I'm sorry, I'm just still like caught up on that. Like that's insane. I'm racist. 500,000 likes. What are we doing?
I mean, that was a hilarious video. If you can watch that video and you're going to take it entirely serious, like it's a declaration of personal racism, I mean, go ahead, pal, but you're in the same league with the people who think that your crash out over your anxiety pen was serious. I mean, you're doing the same thing that you're making fun of them for doing.
So you're saying that like it's
Am I right or am
it's-
I right?
It's synonymous for you to say that like I'm just like taking that video seriously as individuals taking like a video seriously of like me crashing out over the anxiety pens. And, the anxiety pen actually exists. So there's two possible responses here. Right, one might say that we have like reason to take it seriously based upon that you're just trying to argue that we should like violate the Constitution to ban citizenship for the children of undocumented immigrants. And then on another hand, even if it is the case that it's not serious and that it is just like a quote unquote joke, well, I don't really think it's too funny of a joke. And even if you didn't make that video to make a very standard and serious declaration of racism, it's incredibly weird. It's incredibly weird.
I mean, I thought it was pretty funny, but we can agree to disagree. The same way that people in the courts,
okay, wait.
judges,
wait. I want you to educate me.
I'm trying to get to the debate.
Explain to me why it's funny.
Okay. Here it is. There's a timing. I mean, it's not going to be funny now that I have to explain it to you, but I'll do it. I'll do it for you, Dean. There's a comedic timing in the way the buzz works. There is a subversion of expectations. The girl and the guy are involved in this dating Jubilee video, I think, and they have to hit a red buzzer when somebody says, something that the person finds as like a red flag or unattractive. And so the question the narrator asks them, or this like invisible voice, they say, what's a red flag? And the girl goes, being racist. Now the clip is like 5 minutes long, and it's funny because he actually does end up pressing the red button on her. It's just not timed the way that I timed it. But then right as she says, being racist, I jump in and I go, because it's funny, because it's a subversion of your expectation. It goes from this one video of this girl saying like, yeah, being racist is like bad, to me being like, oh, it's actually hilarious because that is regressive and it's totally against, comedic norms and, it's a little bit edgy. I mean, it sounds really cringe saying all that, but then it's even funnier because of the comedic timing of the second buzz.
What if
because
she
it's
said,
another
what
subversion
if
of
she
expectation.
What if she said like a red flag was being like a child rapist, and then it cuts to your video going,
and then you hit the buzz? That would be hilarious, dude. That would be so funny. It's like, and you would have.
Dude. Okay. All right. Well, we're just gonna move on to the next guest. Everyone, just give us a minute. We got Donnie Clark loading up in the box.